Hello to everyone. I hope you're doing well under these very difficult circumstances. My name is Amadeo Genzana, and I'm the director of the Economics and Business Department at Casa Asia. And well, today we are here to offer a series of webcasts together with the law firm Cuatrecasas to explain actually the situation of Spanish companies operating in China through different interviews with managers and executives living there. I hope this can provide an important tool for Spanish companies to understand what's the real situation in the business world in China and actually how this can affect Spain. I think this is quite important due to the fact coronavirus affected to China 2 months before hitting Spain. And therefore, I think it's very interesting to understand what's happening there, to learn how the companies have been reacting and what measures they have been taking, and also to understand what's this real situation in China. So for that purpose, actually, we count today on the participation of 3 members of the law firm Cuatrecasas. First of all, just Mr. Omar Puertas, his partner at Cuatrecasas, now based in Barcelona, but he has been working in China for the last 13 years, and we know each other for a long time. Also, we count on the participation of Yao Wang, who's a senior associate for common law at Cuatrecasas in China, and with the participation of Grace Lin, who is also senior associate for fiscal law. So first of all, thank you very much to all of you for participation in this webcast. And my first question would be about actually what have been the effects of the coronavirus on Spanish companies operating in China, and how are they reacting, both in the case of industrial companies and also companies that are selling in China.
Okay, well, Amadeo, thank you very much for inviting us to be here today with you. Yes, I think, well, I follow the situation with China on a daily basis with Grace, with Yao, and with clients. And clearly, they are 2 months ahead of us. That means that by Chinese New Year, by early February of this year, China, as you all know, decided to basically shut down all operations and all activity and confinement of basically everyone at home with very, very strict measures. I must say that in that regard, the Chinese government understood very well what was coming ahead, and decided to basically enforce super strict lockdown that has resulted, as you may see, well, has been a success in terms of trying to control the situation. So that resulted obviously in a very harsh shutdown of companies, of manufacturing. So basically for the whole month of February, and I follow this with our team and with the clients, companies could not operate, either because they were not allowed to operate or because the workers could not come back to work because they were locked down in Wuhan, they were locked down in Wenzhou or somewhere, right? So basically they had no workers to work. So they could not operate for the whole month of February. That certainly, of course, creates huge losses for the companies. They cannot manufacture, they cannot sell, they cannot do anything, and yet they have to pay rents, they have to pay workers, they have to pay the mortgages, they have to pay loans, and all of that. So it was very, very stressful during that month. The Chinese government reacted to that first, asking companies not to dismiss employees. Second, asking them to pay, to still pay the employees. Third, they provided all kind of subsidies and ways to help the companies from a financial point of view, also from a social security point of view. So that resulted quite well, in my view. And starting from mid-March, operations have restarted. and now I believe is basically depends on the client, and of course those in Wuhan are still facing a lot of complexities, but in other parts of China they are back in 90%, most of them 60 to 90% operations. So for Spanish companies was exactly the same. So lots of them were completely shut down in February. Imagine companies in the auto parts, right? If they cannot manufacture auto parts, then the OEMs cannot manufacture cars, and this results in huge complications in the supply chain of all of companies in China. So that is coming back online, and as I read, it seems that well, the consumers are also very cheerfully coming back to the market as well. So it seems that the whole thing has been contained in basically 2 months of operations.
Well, thank you very much. Just my second question is also referring to what you have said. Actually, well, there have been companies, problems for companies all over the world because of China's importance in the global supply chain in many sectors. Okay, what's the situation nowadays? Actually, first of all, has production been fully restored? And second, do you foresee in the future that there might be just problems in the global supply chain due to the situation in China?
Yeah, it is my understanding that manufacturing capacity is almost fully restored in China. Depends again on the sector, the place, but basically is restored to a very good level, I would say. So the problem now is, of course, Europe, the US, the UK, Latin America, other places. Now we are facing problems, and now my clients here in Europe are telling me we are not going to, or we need to cancel orders from China, or we are not going to order more. We will have to wait because our stores are closed, because we cannot sell, because there is we have problems with our own clients, right? As you all know, for instance, hotels are closed in Spain, and we depend a lot on tourism, and tourism brings a lot of consumption, a lot of orders, a lot of things that we take from China, right? So all of that is having a direct impact in China. That's for sure, and China supports its economy in a wide margin through exports. So this is going to have an effect on China for sure. China cannot ignore the situation, right? They have grown over the years in a big percentage through exports, and it has been like this, and it will continue to be like this for some time. So this will have an impact on them. Now, what China is doing, as I understand, is putting a lot of effort in internal consumption, putting a lot of effort as well in domestic traveling, and also reinforcing its financial operations in China. So I think they are taking steps to get to be, so that they are not as dependent as they were before from exports, but this will take some time.
Thank you very much. Third question actually is actually very important, probably for Spanish companies exporting to China. How is the internal consumption? Have people just returned to the purchasing habits? Are commercial center opened, or has been actually this consumption been reduced due to insecurity?
Well, Amadeo, I will take the initiative to answer this question. So undoubtedly, China's domestic consumption was severely affected because of the containment measures, especially for sectors like retails, travel, hotels, restaurants, transport, entertainment, which normally produce a high volume of turnover during the Chinese New Year holiday. For instance, till February, retail sales dropped 20.5% compared to the same period in 2019. Instead, most purchases have been done online. As a result, e-commerce of physical commodities had a positive increase of 3% during the same periods. Moreover, till February, sales for automotives and real estate also took a hit. Traditional automotive sales dropped by 42%. New energy vehicle sales dropped by 59.5%. Real estate sales dropped by 35.9% in terms of turnover. So that being said, since March, many restrictive measures were lifted and the people were gradually resuming work. So the consumption level has also been recovering, although it may take some time to return to normal for two main reasons. First of all, for the time being, people are still very cautious of their safety. There have been new confirmed cases imported from overseas. So many people are concerned about the second round of epidemic and try to avoid crowded places and gathering activities. Many entertainment businesses, such as cinemas, are still closed. People are still reluctant to take domestic travels. On weekends, many people prefer to stay home instead of going to shopping malls or restaurants. Secondly, people are also very careful with their spendings. In February, due to the shutdown of the economy, urban unemployment rate reached 6.2% nationwide. Now, although many companies are resuming work, it doesn't mean a recovery of the economy. With the evolving situation overseas, China now is facing an economic shock, swaying from the supply side to the demand side. So people are worried about their jobs and a reduction of the dispensable income. So for the time being, to a greater or lesser extent, people are not very eager to make big purchases or unnecessary spendings. However, on the bright side, we are also seeing an increase of commercial loans from the resident individuals in March, which shows a promising trend of recovery in consumption. So overall, I think the consumer confidence is still stable and optimistic. Hopefully, the consumption level will gradually pick up in the upcoming months. Get back to you.
Thank you very much for your answer. I think it's quite important for Spanish companies to know, because most of the companies we're working with actually are trying to sell in China nowadays, and therefore your information is very valuable. And I have also last question regarding the sectors that are just the most and least affected by the pandemic in China.
So I think the sectors which are most affected by the pandemic include like catering, traveling, and entertainment. For the catering industry, as you all know, the outbreak took place in the Chinese New Year, which is a traditional peak season for bars and restaurants business. Starting from the late January, all the bars and restaurants have been stopped business for almost 2 months. However, meanwhile, they have to bear huge expenses for food stock, employees, and rentals. Comparing with last year, during this special time, almost 78% restaurants' loss in revenue reaches 100%. Only 5% companies control their losses under 70%. And for the traveling sector, the previous statistic estimated a market scale of over RMB 500 billion for the Golden Week of Chinese New Year. But suddenly this market vanished due to the outbreak and various restrictions imposed on transportation. On the one hand, travel agencies stopped their businesses and incurred huge losses, as well as hotels, coming along with flights canceled, scenic spots closed down, and so on. On the other hand, people canceled their travel plans and reservations. The demand of traveling dropped significantly. Although now the government are trying to rebuild people's comfort for going outside, together with a lot of promotion activities given by hotels and travel agencies, it still needs some time for the market to recover. And the most obvious impact on the entertainment sector is the movie industry. All the cinemas are closed and movies have been withdrawn. So far, there's still no clear sign on when cinemas can be reopened to the public yet. But as everyone knows, probably the first sector which is least affected by the pandemic is pharmaceutical. For the time being, the coronavirus drug development and sale results in a rapid growth of relevant companies. Some companies are accelerating on the R&D activities and manufacturing of the test kits used for the diagnosis, while some other companies are focusing on the production of masks, gloves, and protection suits for the safety of medical professionals and normal people. Furthermore, due to the social distancing principle and travel restrictions, the internet pharmaceutical industry also gains continuous development. For instance, retail of drugs on e-commerce platforms, online appointment and diagnosis, all of these have brought lots of conveniences to people's daily life during this difficult time. Another sector which has the least effect is online education and office, where a huge demand is triggered by the pandemic situation because schools are shut down and people start remote working without going to the offices. At the beginning, some online platforms collapsed due to the huge amount of visitors at the same time. For instance, TikTok by Alibaba and WeChat by Tencent. However, it only took a short time for these companies to improve the quality, and they are quite stable now. Although I think face-to-face meetings will come back eventually after this is over, but these platforms will inevitably penetrate into our daily life in the future, as a larger population have been quite familiar with these now. So basically, that is my understanding of the impacts on different industries in China.
Well, thank you very much. I think it was quite interesting also to understand this change of habits of the people in China towards actually the use of digitalization. That is something that we are also seeing in Spain. Actually, I don't know if you have any just final remarks, maybe Omar, on China, and maybe just if some of the experience in China could be translated to Spain just before finishing.
Well, thank you, Amadeo. I think it's I'm very optimistic always about China, and especially how they deal with economic issues. So I think there is a lot to learn on what Chinese companies do on facing this crisis. So basically, as Chinese say, right, for every crisis there is an opportunity, and they are 2 months ahead of us, and they are already working on solutions while we are still focusing on problems. So that's why it's very important that we try to learn from what they do. So for instance, there is a clear push for the digital world. China is ahead of Europe already on that. Everything happens online in China. So we have to learn from that, the solutions they have, how they implement that, because this is only going to get in more and more into our lives. That's exactly what Yao and Grace were saying just now. So we will be using video calls, we will be using WeChat or WhatsApp, we will be using online education, and this is here to stay, and that's it, right? If you are in the catering service, if you are in an industry that is heavily affected by actual limitations on people getting together, then of course there's still a lot to do for your business. You can learn from how they do it in China. Everything is online. They sell everything online. Also the food, of course, they do that in Spain, but nothing compared to the extent they do in China. And you can apply this to basically any other industry. So for me, the big lesson is how people in China are readapting their business models and how they are refocusing and thinking that what is happening now is not a 2 months or 3 months thing. No, it's for the long term, and then the decisions and the solutions need to be also long term. So the sooner we start understanding this and taking decisions in that direction, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Well, thank you very much, Omar. Thank you very much also, Wang and Grace Ling. I think it's been a very useful webcast, and we will continue in the following weeks with other interviews to different managers and also executives living in China. So thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.